everybody to our WordPress meetup. I am Amber Hinds and I'm one of the co-organizers. And what we're going to do is we like to go around and just have everybody introduce themselves and just say what they do with WordPress, which I think makes it helpful for our speakers, in which case we have 4 today. And then they will introduce themselves. So would you be interested in starting?
I'm Kevin. I'm a WordPress developer at CSU.
I'm David. I run W.
So how about you guys? Do you want to introduce yourselves? Starting with Ron?
Sure. Do you want like a little bit of the company background too?
Sure, I
brief
think so.
version?
Yeah,
Okay.
and a little bit about what your company does, what sort of services you offer.
Okay, so I founded and I run CodeGeek, and we are a website design and development company. So we do custom website design, user interface design, that type of thing. And then on the development side, we do web apps in PHP and Ruby on Rails. And we do websites and a variety of content management systems, mostly PHP based, but WordPress is probably 90% of that work these days because WordPress is so popular. But we like the more complicated sites is what we're really after. But we do the full range from very simple template sites all the way to 100% custom all the way through. And started the company 15 years ago. We've grown to 11 employees and about a dozen subcontractors now. Yeah, so that's, I guess, the quick background. And we're right here in Fort Collins, just down the street in the Kissick building on Mountain Avenue.
I'm Gordon from Copperleaf Creative. Leah is my business manager and the reason I am still in business. I started building websites professionally full-time in 2008 and took over Copperleaf as my own in 2011 and have been doing that since. We mostly build websites for clients. They're exclusively on WordPress, and if there's a mistake to be made, I've probably made it already.
My name is Jeremy Green. I'm one of the organizers of the Meetup. I own Endo Creative. We do custom WordPress themes and plugins. So I started the company in 2010 as just myself, kind of a solopreneur thing, and then about 3 years ago hired a developer full-time, and then about a month ago hired a project manager because I am overwhelmed. So she's helping me not be that. So that's been awesome. And I'm also part owner with a couple of guys in a plugin company. So we do plugin sales and stuff. So kind of wear both hats on that. So that's that's me.
My name's Chris Hinds. I am Amber's husband and business partner for Road Warrior Creative. We're a local boutique agency here in Fort Collins that does full service digital marketing, everything from website design and development to SEO, social media marketing, strategic development, and execution. My role in the business is the operations officer, so kind of like Leah back there for Copperleaf, I make sure the gears turn and the business run, and I'm usually the first point of contact for new inquiries as far as quoting out and scoping out projects.
Great. So we are having this panel discussion because we had a member of our meetup ask us if we had any advice on how he could price his services, and we're like, you know what, that's a really great topic for a meetup. So I wanted to start and just ask you guys, what is the process that you have when someone comes to you for a new project, and how do you start to figure out the scope of that project?
Anybody want to jump in? I can start if you want.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, so mine won't be comprehensive, but I'm sure between the 4 of us we'll probably fill in most of the gaps. So for us, when it's a prospect, the best process for us is to meet with them either in person or if they're remote, then with a screen share. We like to do that because I like to actually hear their voice as we ask them the questions of, what are their business goals with whatever it is they're trying to do? What are their customers' goals with the website? They often forget that, sometimes forget that. And we get a lot more nuances that way where you can kind of pick up on if there's some area that maybe from our experience of having made many mistakes, of like, ooh, that sounds like a really big area. Let's talk about that some more. Where is that going? So that's how we like to learn more about what they're after through that kind of an interview process. And at that first meeting, we like to show them some of the work that we've done. We try to find a few examples of sites that are similar to things they're looking for, or might have a component that's similar, even if it's not in the same industry. And we found that that's been a very successful piece of the recipe for us in the sales process. That if a prospect can see like, oh gosh, they've done something really similar, once they have that confidence that there's no question you can do it, then we have found that helps. Of course, that's not always possible, and if you're starting new, then that's, it just takes a little while to build up that portfolio, but that is a very helpful approach. So that's how we start, and then depending on the complexity of it, we're taking notes, of course, during that meeting. We've done so many of these things that we're looking for certain categories, like, what are they after design-wise? Who's doing the content? Are they doing the content? Do they want us to hire a copywriter to do the content? That's a huge factor. And then, that affects how many page templates there might be, depending on how they want to lay out that content, which affects the design and development budget. If there's a whole bunch of page templates, or if it's just a home page and general interior page that works for everything. So we're trying to figure all those pieces out. And if it looks really complicated, maybe you'll ask us as a follow-on question, I'm not sure, but I know in the questions we were looking at ahead of time is, do we charge for that that discovery process? Normally we don't, with a regular project, we would not, but if it's a very large-scale project, then definitely. So we had one project that was 3 developers for almost 9 months, and so that was the largest project we ever did. Actually, Jeremy was part of that project. But for that one, we had a billable discovery process that was 2 meetings a week for 2 hours at a time for a month. And that mapped out 80% of the functionality of the whole project. So that was a separate billable effort. So in that first meeting, if it's a regular kind of website, there's a range that we do, of complexity that we're comfortable with. We're like, okay, we can figure that out. That's our starting point.
That is crazy. That discovery process.
I know, it was.
So unless either of you gentlemen were going to go chime in. So I think that initial conversation that Ron mentioned is really critical, building that rapport. And I will be the first to acknowledge a mistake, other than in general terms. A very specific mistake we made early on, I feel, is we were directing people to a form before we would even have that initial conversation. And I think that some agencies and some people out there really push that, saying you should try and filter people by having them jump through a bunch of hoops before you talk to them first. But in my experience, that cheapens the process, and it makes it less likely that you'll eventually close the deal. Because even if you have that initial conversation with the person, you find out, say, they have a $250 budget and they want a 5-page brochure site for that. If you treat them like they're the $25,000 client and you give them that experience, at least for the first phone call, before letting them down easily, they are that much more likely to remember your business positively versus remembering you as the person that made them jump through 5 hoops just to tell them, no, sorry, we can't work with you. I think that's really key. And then, like he mentioned also, I'll just echo that goal-oriented approach of defining scope. So asking them what their goals are, both for themselves and for their target audience, is absolutely critical for defining scope, because that's really going to tell you what feature set and what structure needs to exist in that website in order to achieve those goals or those metrics.
Yeah, so I'll chime in on 2 things there. One is that I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I do it differently.
Sure.
I do adamantly drill people through my intake, my intake form, which is relatively short. I want to say it's 6 or 8 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of really big, open-ended, what are the business goals of this project? Paragraph field.
Sure. Sure.
I'm just looking to see what you're going to say. And then the one that I care most about, again, about something you were alluding to, is budget. And our lowest option right now is $5,000 is a lot for us. And it goes up from there. So that's your first option to say. And that weeds out the people who only have, or have an expectation that they can get a website built for $300. And you can. You're going to get what you pay for, and I'm not going to do it for you.
Sure.
So, and the other part is, the larger sentiment that you were making people jump through a bunch of hoops, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's impersonal, it's not the way you attract or retain high quality clients. But that first one, I do like to see how well people follow directions, and if they have the interest, because in our process, we do ask our clients to do quite a bit. And it may be things that they didn't think they needed to do, or they may be things outside of their comfort zone. So to see how people react to that, I get a very quick personality gauge.
Sure.
And I've
had success with the forum.
I had a client who called, and I knew, it was a personal referral from an IT guy I'm tight with. He called me and said, I'm referring you someone, but I need to give you fair warning. And I went, okay, I'm listening. She's got crazy deep pockets, and she's a pain in the ass to deal with. And I went, Okay, depending on what, hey, that's cool. Depending on what kind of pain, I'm a pain in the ass to deal with. So, but we went back and forth for a couple of days where she would call and she'd be like, no, her admin would call. Like, no, she absolutely refuses, won't fill out the form, won't even have a phone call. You have to drive out to her property. I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
That right there is the I mean, it's a very small shop. It's me and Leah right now, which means if there's a personality conflict, I'm not gonna do good work.
Hey, at our size, which is only a little bit bigger,
Sure.
same thing though. If there's a personality conflict, we don't want to have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
project.
Sure. And I'm at a
It's
point,
not worth it.
I'm actually recently going in the opposite direction as Jeremy. I had 3 full-time until February when I realized that revenue's lovely, but profit matters more. And we decided to go lean and mean, and we're putting up numbers a hair shy of where we were with 3 people full-time. We'll talk more later. And I just remembered Kevin knows my lead dev. And it's so the personality makes a big impact on that, and it also gives us the luxury where we only are looking, depending on the size of the project, for between 6 and 12 clients a year. I mean, if I'm looking for 6 good projects a year, I get to say no to a lot of people. And I do say get to say no, and it is a letdown easy, and it's a help them find a better fit.
Sure.
You wouldn't believe how often I refer all of you. It's like, nope, this isn't good, try going here. I think the point of that was my form works and I love it, but
Sure.
I'm reconsidering.
And I can understand the value of having that initial form as long as it's short and easy. I think maybe it's just how I'm wired or something. But I feel like I am able to assess pretty quickly whether or not someone's going to work.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Even on a phone.
Yeah, and I think my problem is that I schmooze too much, and
Yeah.
and I've missed it. I've let clients in that I just talked and talked and talked and then didn't hear enough.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that again, if a client comes, if a person comes to us and I get the, that the hair stands up, that this might be a really low budget person or a reasonable budget, but they expect the moon for their money, that type of situation, I'll usually, instead of writing a full proposal, send off a price range and say if that sounds good, then I'll write you a proposal. And that's a big time saver because I would say about 50% of the time we just get the no thanks and then we refer them on to someone else.
So,
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
you do a lot of work where you're working for agencies rather than small business owners. Is the
Yeah.
process different?
It is a little bit different. So we still have our own clients that we get every once in a while. Like I just landed a pretty decent sized one that'll be coming up in a couple months. And that one, the big thing for me, whenever it's just my own client, is I always ask, what are your business goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I basically just repeat the answers to those questions in the
In your
proposal.
proposal?
Yeah, it's like, here's how we're gonna help you solve those goals, right?
Yep.
There's a mix of, you're wanting to accomplish this, this, and this. Well, we've already done that with 4 other clients, so like you were saying, that helps a lot, right? But basically, it's not about how do we build it. We're not gonna put that in the proposal. We put, how are we gonna solve the problem or meet your business goals or whatever. So that's what I really focus on. And then with the marketing stuff, it is a little bit different. So kind of the niche I've been going after lately is more just partnering with marketing agencies and kind of being the developer arm for them. Because I a few years back tried to do the whole marketing thing and it's just not me. So I realized that, and so just playing to my strengths. So that one's a little bit different in that basically with marketing projects I usually just get a scope of like, here's what we're trying to accomplish. They might even already have the designs, and then they just say how much does it cost to develop it. So in that point, I'm just taking like how much development effort is this going to take. So a little bit different.
And we also do quite a bit of work for marketing agencies, and because we've worked with the same few for a long time, we have a kind of a template, so.
Yeah.
And we work with their designer forever, so
Right.
we really kind of know.
You kind of know how
Yeah,
long it's gonna
exactly.
take, yeah.
Yeah, so we know, well, this one's gonna be a lot more complicated, but we have our buckets and then we kind of just put the numbers into the buckets, and it's a lot easier, I find, to estimate those as we've worked with a marketing agency for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not the long, like, drawn out proposal process. A lot of times it's like 2 emails and it's done. So that's really nice too.
I think the takeaway nugget there is that strategic partners are invaluable. You can get that kind of relationship. I mean, it's great for both of you. That marketing company's got a dev shop they can rely on because in a room full of web developers, I will say web developers are a flaky bunch. We blink in and out of existence. We run off and get real jobs. We've all taken on clients who have horror stories. It's an unfortunate commonality. And then, of course, you get a client who's well prepped, has the material you need. I mean, That's just awesome.
I
So
love those.
for anybody who's looking to work more with agencies, or this is a little bit of tangent, do you have advice for how you get those partnerships?
Literally the only way I've got them is just networking and meeting people. I haven't like marketed myself to them.
Okay.
It's just meeting them and be like, hey, I do web development. Hey, do marketing, we need help. That's,
And when I meet those people, I'll say, well, if you ever have any overflow, you
Yeah.
know, then let me know. We'd love to jump in and help out. That's a good way, because eventually they all get too busy and
yep,
you'll get a call.
yep, exactly.
So can you guys share a time when you might have underbid a project? And what did you learn from the experience, or what did you do differently?
Never happens.
Oh wait, actually, let me step back from that real quick.
Yeah.
Do you typically, in your proposals, scope it or price it on a flat rate for the project or hourly? And that
Yeah.
maybe could be a quick answer, or maybe it's not a quick answer.
Well, hourly is the holy grail. I mean, you can get that, that's awesome, but that's rare. Yeah,
Mhm.
we do have a few clients like that, but they're hard to find.
I would venture to say that proper value-based pricing is the holy grail. Because you can do 2 hours of work and cash a $50,000 check.
There you go.
Because you delivered the value.
I changed my answer to what Gordon said.
Right? That's the real holy grail.
So-
Then the next best holy grail is totally, yeah. You
You're
get
not,
someone
you're not gonna get that. So.
once or twice ever I've landed that. Not
Yeah.
50 grand, but
Yeah.
yes. And then, yeah, the next best is a client who just says, bill me the end of the month and never blinks. And I got a couple of those, and they
Yeah.
are delightful.
The best ones, right?
Yes, they are the best ones.
Yeah,
They are the best ones.
in general, we put out proposals for flat-priced projects that are based in hourly justifications internally that I never, ever share.
With
Because,
the client,
right,
yeah.
because then they start getting this piecemeal, very spreadsheet literal, and they go, well, we only spent half as much time in design.
You can take
Where's
some
my
off the
refund?
bat, right.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, something's gonna bite us, just trust me. Like, it always comes out in the wash, ish. But the individual parts can vary wildly.
Yeah, and I would say with that though, you have to have a history of tracking your time to know like how long things are gonna take to be able to accurately do those time estimates for flat-based pricing. So that's something I've been doing since I started, is I use FreshBooks and I track my time on everything. Whether it's an hourly project or a fixed bid, I still track time, so I know how profitable I am on it. And so that's been invaluable, so I can go back and look at a project and know, okay, this is how many hours this took. So the next time someone comes down the pipe that's pretty similar in scope and effort, I can be like, you know, this is how long it took, put a little pad in case something goes wrong or whatever. And usually that turns out pretty good.
Plus one, what he said, always track your time. We get real granular with it. Even if we're in the support zone, you know, switching tasks every 3 to 5 minutes, we use toggle, so it's easy to just move around and hit play on something else and stop on the other thing.
Yep.
And it's essential to judging your own efficiency.
Yeah, we track our time down to the 10th of an hour. And we actually bill, for retainer clients, we bill in 10th of an hour increments because, you know, for little tiny stuff, we all know we can do in 6 minutes. In fact, a lot of times it's 2, and I get to bill for 6. That feels pretty good. Because I feel like a jerk, because the inverse of that is you work for 2 and you send an invoice for a half hour, and I'm like, I can't do that with a straight face, which means I'm more likely not to bill for it. And before Leah came on and tightened up the OCD around the office, I just didn't bill for all of that. And I was floored at how much money she rained out of the sky in $10 and $20 invoices for like domain registrations. I'm not gonna bother sending that.
Right.
What? Those add up.
Yes.
And those little tiny tasks, those add up too. So now I just track obsessively every minute that's going everywhere. And then Leah runs that at the end of the week and invoices get tallied and tracked and go out and money pours in the door. It's amazing. It's like a business or something.
I think I got us off on a tangent, my fault, my bad, but I think the question was flat rate or hourly, right, Amber?
Yeah.
So,
And actually, I think the original question was, have you had one that went bad?
Yeah,
So I
but I
will-
was like,
Yeah.
we probably should say whether, the hourly in
right.
general, you probably won't go bad.
Probably.
Right.
No, but you can really exhaust a client who can get
Oh.
invoice fatigue of like, I just keep paying you, why are we not done?
Yeah.
We had a project that we wrapped up, we were aiming to have wrapped up the first week of January, it didn't go live until March, and we ran 100 hours over what we did, and didn't get to bill for a dime of it. I also didn't try. Sometimes I try. Sometimes I'll say, we didn't scope this out right. We, between you and I, the client and us, neither of us came to the table with everything. And if you can catch that at the right point in the conversation and insert that and say, listen, we can either, with the remaining runway, because maybe they don't have an extra penny to spend. If you can catch it with enough runway to say, this is what I can deliver for the money that you gave me, and this is how it'll help us along the way, that's probably your best option, and I frequently sail right past that. And then I go, oh, we're out of money. I guess I better keep working. And in this particular case, there were a lot of complexities. I kind of rush quoted it because it was with a newer strategic partner. And I felt a little overconfidence there, and I didn't pin the end client hard enough. And I made the probably the biggest of all sins, which is, yes, it'll do what it used to do. Don't ever say that, because you don't know what you're agreeing to. I mean, if they can't give you a list of specs, bill them to work together to create a comprehensive list of specs. The irony is I went to the mat with another client about this about a year ago because they said, I just need to do everything it did. And I'm like, I'm never agreeing to that, ever. And I got it.
Unless they can write it out.
Yeah, and then most of the way through the project, they're like, you said you'll do anything. I'm like, no, I did not. And I pulled it up in writing, and then so started the strife. But this one, I got a little cocky. I thought I had it. It turned out to be a lot more complex than I thought it was. And one particular feature that was highly technical was way more complex than I thought it was. And in the end, we worked it out. And in fact, I just pushed a new version of that yesterday because we're still modifying it and making it awesome. So, sometimes I guess the moral of that is hopefully you do well enough that you can eat an overage if you find yourself in that position. It's my opinion that it's always best to eat that overage and eat it with dignity and keep the client for the long term rather than blow it up over, I'm working for free, and then you get crusty or you underdeliver or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, if you screw it up, you
You
it's
gotta
kind
own
of
that.
on you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just part of running a business.
And most of the time, if I screwed up, and it happens a lot, it happened in discovery.
Yeah.
It was rushing the discovery process and not really digging in my heels and saying, no, I don't care about your design, I don't care about anything else, we have to get this right.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're both gonna suffer later on.
Yep.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So whenever you do go over, how do you communicate that with the client so that they know that they're getting a good deal? I mean,
I don't
they've
have
done this.
I don't have one answer for that, but the top answer is communication is key. Whatever you choose to do, communicate it. I don't know if that end client ever actually got the message that we were at 100 hours over. Sometimes it's a point of embarrassment where it's like, I screwed up, and I'd rather just you think I did awesome.
Yeah.
I know that my strategic partner knows we went way over on that one, so we're trying to work that out. But communicating to the client, I think, is really important because they need to know how hard you overworked. Otherwise, you're carrying around this burden and this chip on your shoulder that they're completely unaware of.
Right, and then they come back asking for other stuff, not realizing why you're so testy about it.
Right.
And it's so important, because we've had that exact scenario where we've gone over because we misestimated things.
Yep.
But letting the client know that, and that we're gonna cover it, and we're gonna fix it, goes a long way. And then when they come back with something else, I find they're much more understanding than like, that's great, that's Go Plus, and we'll estimate that for you. And they're like, okay, that's fair. They're not expecting it for free. Whereas when we haven't communicated that we spent time over, they're like, why are you charging me an hour for this little thing? And they got really frustrated, understandably so. Well, because we spent 100 hours more on this project. They're like, well, we didn't know that.
Right.
Right.
Can I
That's why they
jump
don't
in?
care.
Can I ask a question? Ron, you mentioned, and I think someone else did too, content for websites. It's been a huge problem for me because I'm allowing my clients to create their own content and submit it to me, but then they just don't do it, and it's really delayed projects. So I've considered writing in a clause that gives them a deadline for content, giving them incentive, a percentage off if they get it to me by a certain date, imposing penalties if they don't. Do any of you have any insight on that?
I'll chime in. We've built into our process and our proposal and our agreement a very strict stipulation that anything we request, unless it's defined otherwise in a statement of work, has to be delivered to us within 30 days, or we can terminate the project in the agreement. And then in addition to that, we have a built-in clause that if we terminate a project, which is a very negative term that I don't like to use, but really it's just, okay, you're behind, we're gonna reschedule, right? That's the real conversation that happens,
Right.
but we build in a reinstatement fee. Ours is $400, full transparency. So if the client is running behind for whatever reason, we give them plenty of warning. We say, hey, you know, we need this by X date. I usually try to make it at least 2 weeks. And I tell them if that's not realistic, we're going to have to reschedule your project because we have other people in line behind you whose projects can't suffer just because this project is running behind.
How often have you had to do that, or actually have that conversation? I mean, obviously, we all try to avoid that, so I'm always curious how often do you
I mean,
actually
we
go
are,
that far?
I would say that at this point in our business growth trajectory, we are graduating from clients who are off the ball to clients that are on the ball. You know, because we're migrating from sole proprietors and small-time, small-fry businesses to teams of people with marketing directors of large companies or CEOs that have support teams that they can delegate this stuff to and get it to us quickly. So, you know, I think previously it was just about every single project.
It seems like it
But
really does.
sometimes
Yeah.
giving the thread is
And
enough.
everyone,
Right.
you know,
to,
they
like,
don't
get
want
it
you to
moving.
create the
Yeah.
content for them because they just feel like that's.
Well, here's what I do. I get half up front on every project and then require content before we go into development.
Okay.
So I get paid and then I don't have to do any work until they give me content. So.
Okay, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. That is a really good idea.
Similar to what you were describing, Nathan Ingram from Alabama has a talk
Yes.
called Clients Are Friendly Monsters. He gave it at WordCamp Denver last year. It is fantastic. I didn't see it at Denver because I was hosting the other room. I watched it finally
It's on
in like,
WordPress TV.
yeah, I watched it in like December of last year. And he goes through a couple of phases where it's like delayed, suspended, and terminated.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, his consequences, it's similar. You want to give people enough time. You want to be reasonable. But you want to make sure that you're not the one left holding the bag if they just keep saying tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. I think the initial was a couple $100 reinstatement fee, just a slap on the wrist to let them know you're serious.
Right.
His second tier was you have to pay me the full balance before work starts.
Oh, can I jump in the middle of
that's
that?
a
I'm
good
sorry,
idea.
because with our formal project delay notification, any work we've done, you know, we look at our time records, we look at what we've done so far. Anything that is beyond the deposit they paid us that we've done work for. So say with our hourly rate, we did an extra $3,000 of work beyond what they paid us in deposit. They would get a bill for that when the delay notification is sent because we're getting paid.
Sure.
Anyway, sorry
Sure,
for interrupting.
absolutely. Yeah. And then, so the second one there is you have to pay us the full balance before we'll restart work, but we're still going to complete the contract as is.
Wow.
So, you know, if you've gone outside your 30 days and you've already had to restart once, then it's give me all the money and I'll give you what you wanted. And the last trigger, if I remember right from him, is you forfeit all your money. And if you want to work with me again, I'm requoting it from scratch and we're starting from scratch. We might be able to reuse some of the components, but you've proven to be a difficult client and there is new math on the table.
Yeah, and I would say if you get to that point, like, you
Just
need to do a better job of like vetting a client.
Well, I think I do take responsibility.
Like, you never want to have that conversation.
Well, and
It's not
Nathan-
gonna work out well for everybody.
No.
I don't remember if Nathan pointed that out in the talk or with me afterward, but he goes, I've never done that. Like, I've never renegotiated a contract because I've never wanted that client back. But they know what the terms are. And he's very, I get the impression, I've never been his client, but I get the impression that he's very good about going through all of that up front and is very clear. And if you walk people through all of those terms, you don't want to hide this in your contract.
Right.
You want to
That
make
needs
it
to be very
front
clear.
and center and say, in order for both of us to succeed, this is what I'm committing to you and this is what you need to commit to me. And what are the consequences for each? And that way, if it comes up, there's no surprises, and with any luck, you get paid for your heartache.
I like Jeremy's though. You
Yeah.
just get the content before you start the project.
And then one
That's
thing
pretty
we
cool.
do is we'll set, with the client, we'll set deadlines for 50% of content delivered, 75% delivered, and 100%.
Okay.
Because that way you have a couple of trigger points where, you know, so at the 50% day, if the day before they're like, I don't have anything, you know, it's good to know that only halfway in, right? Because there's still time to recover or change the schedule.
Yeah.
So something
That's how we-
Chris
And
does-
talk about the best business model ever. You just get people to pay you deposits, and then they never come up with the content. So
Right. Well, I mean, I've had 3 projects in the last year that have failed not because of anything I didn't do, just I couldn't get the content from them.
So
And there were no teeth in the contract, and no incentives in the contract, so it's like, I guess we're gonna let this die on the vine.
Yeah, so something Chris does, which you didn't mention, but I'll mention for you, is in our scope of work, he lists out if it's our responsibility to create content, what it will be, or if it's the client's, and he has something like, so we have a
I
formula,
have a
we're assuming
formula,
at
yeah.
least one image per page, or one image per page, right? And maybe like 700 words per page, or something like that, right? So he'll say,
So it's
you
there in
need-
black and white.
you need this many images and this many words of content, right? Because I think sometimes, and if we do that before they sign, like, sometimes they don't realize, they think, writing content for my website, oh, that's easy. And they forget that, oh, my website is supposed to include, like, it has a recipes section and I need to fill that with recipes, and it has like all of these things. And when you say to them this many words, sometimes they go, actually, we do want to hire you for that because,
Right.
you know, or the
Yeah.
photos too is another thing. Then they're like, okay, actually buying stock photos is starting to sound good because when you remind me that I actually need to have 100 images.
Which still requires a budget to go find
Yes.
100 images
Sure.
that they approve.
Yes, that they approve, right? Because you go back and forth with on the images. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
I just was gonna say, I have had a few clients that say, there's a blog post right there, 3 sentences. 3 sentences.
That's a tweet.
I said, you're kind of tweeting here. I said, no, in order for you to get indexed by Google, you know, it's gotta be something juicy, and I know you've got content in your head, you just gotta sit down and write when you get time.
And I usually just put in dummy content, and it goes unnoticed that, oh, we actually have to replace this dummy content.
The best one, I love wine, and the best case I ever saw was a wine bottle that went into production, and the back label was lorem ipsum. Yes, I was like, oh, somebody lost their job over that one.
So I was talking with another business owner locally here, and he mentioned that they were thinking about having content be its own phase. And so they'd have design with all lorem ipsum. You know how sometimes we'll be like, oh, we'll just throw in a headline here because we think, but then it gets nitpicky about the text when you're really like, just look at the font size and color and stuff, right? So he's like, all lorem ipsum in design and then all lorem ipsum in development. And then they can say, yes, this functions the way I expect it to, and sign off. And then there's a content phase where you insert content.
That's really interesting.
And if you phase it out that way, you can also have payment points associated potentially with the phases.
I have that flipped on its head 100%.
But that could work too.
Oh, it could, totally. Like, that's very
Yeah.
interesting, and to
Either
solve
way.
that problem, that would probably work. I flipped it on its head for a different reason, which is that, in my opinion, commercial design has a very specific purpose, and that is to best present your message, i.e. your content. And the reason that templates always look so damn good is because their dummy content is designed for the template. But when you take your content and you start shoving it in there and trying to, that's too many words, let's see if we can cut it down to this. Ultimately, it usually comes out looking a bit lumpy. So I'm adamant, and this is always a conversation that goes on and on with clients, but we demand and expect and enforce 100% of final content. You don't get to change it until I give you WordPress logins after we launch, before design. Because
You want to design for
I'm going to design to the message. And clients go, "Brr, what? I thought I could write this on the weekend before we launched." They're like, no, honey.
Can I
Start
steal
writing
that?
now. Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't think that up. I stole that from somebody. I think someone at WordCamp Seattle a bunch of years ago.
And that's how we do it for custom projects. So if it's custom design, then that's the
Yeah.
process that has to happen. For
And that's all we do.
For
So.
exactly that reason.
Yeah.
But we have met a few clients who are very visual, and it winds up being a more iterative process because they actually want to see it. Like, well, I can't know what I'm going to write until I see it. Now, my brain doesn't work that way, so I find it confusing. But I've met enough people who it's really how it works. So in that case, we'll do an iterative thing. Well, give us the first draft, we will lay that out.
Yeah,
And then they see it, they go, okay, and then they tweak some things, and then they can go to town and write.
And of
So,
course, the
yeah.
reality of the truth is we
Yeah.
wiggle it. It's not as rigidly enforced as Leah wishes it was. But I'm always one going, a little exception here, it's okay.
But what we look for is homepage content and one general interior page fully written at a minimum. So it's just a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
So if we shift a little bit back to pricing, one of the things that I'm curious about is, well, I'm going to assume everyone here has raised prices at one point or another. How do you communicate that to existing clients? Do you grandfather them? Do you just say everybody's going up? And Do you send them an email, phone call? What do you do?
My favorite way to do that, so we've certainly raised prices many times over 15 years, is, so once we decide on the new price and when it goes into effect, that's true for all new clients as of that date. And then we'll email existing clients and let them know, like, our rate is going up to this, but because you're an existing client, the date that rate goes up is 3 months from now. So they get the higher rate, but down the road, and we've never had a single complaint, we've never had anybody leave. You know, it's been totally smooth, literally no feedback in 15 years about a change rate.
Nice.
Yeah, so I do the whole grandfather thing in, so I raise my rates every year, it's just kind of the standard. And then basically whoever's a new client gets a new rate, and then kind of grandfather people in. It's getting to a point now where I need to bring all the old clients up. Just can't
Because of
do it.
invoicing troubles?
Well, invoicing and just like, I'm a whole lot better than I was when I started working.
Yeah, so at some point that original rate is just not appropriate anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of one of those things where like if it's a client that comes like once a year with like a 30-minute thing, I'm just like, fine, you know. So I that's something I need to do. But as far as like, you know, I do raise rates every year, and then it's whoever the new client is, they get the new rate.
And we do have several rates, so, you know, for a retail client, for our client, our rate's $125 an hour is our external rate. But then when we work with marketing agencies, or we do work for another developer, like we have a series of tiers of other rates that are lower to make that work, because, you know, there's clients that we do tons of work for, and so we have more favorable rates, and yeah, we get lots of work from them, so it works out. Still profitable though, as you said, that is the most important thing.
The fact it took me 8 years to have that epiphany is like...
I got to the point where this year I've actually had to raise rates for marketing agencies because I've been working with them for so long that I was like, all right guys, I love how much work you bring me. We still like, I can't keep doing it this rate.
And I find we've had to do that too, and I find that's an easy sell though, because they'll say, you know, hey, our external billing rate's down $125 an hour, we're raising yours to this, and they're like, oh, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so I've had an unspoken price for life kind of mentality, particularly with maintenance and those ongoing contracts. I mean, my retail now on maintaining a vanilla WordPress site is $49 a month, and I can think of 2 clients off the top of my head who are paying me $15. So, but we also looked at the roster this year and decided, in alignment with that leaner, meaner theory, that it's time to shake the trees and shake out the dead wood, and really we're planning a 2-tier push. And this is all new, and I don't know that I want to say this out loud, let alone on tape, but hey, here it goes! Clients, if you're watching this!
I have video editing software, so I can redact it if you need.
There are some things coming! We're planning this fall, after WordCamp, to take all of those maintenance contracts that range from $15 a month to the retail of $49, and we're going to bring everybody up to full retail. And I understand that that's going to be really jarring for certain people. We're going to give them a lot of lead time, and we're going to give them options that says you can do this, just pull out the checkbook and we can keep working together, or we'll set you up on your own account here, and that's what this is going to cost, or we'll introduce you to another developer and say, listen, the fact of the matter is it's been 5, 6, 7 years, and you know we've grown and you haven't. And that's nobody's fault. So, you know, I want to find you a better provider. And it's gonna go good client, free to a good home. And we're gonna rehome a lot of people. I've done a little bit of modeling and projecting on that and looked at it and basically gone through my client list and just did a personal judgment call is this person gonna come or are they not? And by my estimation, if it comes out a little worse than I hoped for, we're going to shed probably 30% of those clients and increase revenue by 50%. So I'll be doing less work for more money.
Right.
That's fantastic. And it's less overhead, it's less brain cycles, it's less invoice. Once a year for a half hour, I'm going, dude, why? But I understand because I do it. Because you know that person, and it's all they need, and to send them out to the wolves, hi, you're all wolves. To send them out to the wolves is just not that friendly. So I understand on the other side, I'm getting less mushy about it and more hard businessy and just going, I gotta do the best work for my best clients and not be piddling around doing little stuff if it's wasting my bandwidth.
I think you just reiterated Amber's whole philosophy there, best work for best clients.
Yep.
I mean, we've taken a hard business approach in that When our rates go up, they go up. And that's for any new clients, and it's for any existing clients when it's an hourly rate. If we have a prior agreement with them where they're on some sort of recurring work order for a set period of time, because a significant part of our revenue comes from retainer-based marketing services, we would wait until those agreements are ready for re-up to change pricing, because obviously we've agreed and committed to something and pen is on paper. But for anyone else, the price increases immediately. We try to give 30 days notice to our clients, and we've had very little fall off. I think the majority of the clients that we have lost due to price increases are from the 2010-2011 era when Amber was charging $50 an hour.
Or like $500 for a whole website.
Or $500, very early days. And so those are the people that have fallen off, but anyone that's come to us in the last 3 to 4 years, they've accepted the price increases with grace and understanding, and we see that they read them in our MailChimp analytics whenever we send out a notification, but most people don't say a word, and they keep paying their bills, and they keep chatting with us friendly on the phone. So in general, I think people are receptive to it, and they understand that we're all running businesses.
Yeah, and ultimately, if you're providing good value, another couple bucks an hour shouldn't make a big difference either way.
Yep. And I'll say this too, like for me, another kind of thing that I look at when I look at raising prices or how much I'm going to charge or something like that is like, how much do I want to work on the project? Because I'm like, as a developer, like there's things like I would do for free because I think it'll be a fun thing to do. Obviously from a business perspective I can't do that, but there's things that like I'll throw out a lower number just because I want to work on the project. So I'll admit to that.
Or higher number.
Absolutely.
Well, I would do that, but we're really busy, so if I'm gonna do that, it's gonna be this number. If they really bite on it, okay.
Yeah.
And I've done that a couple times, hoping they said no, and they
Right.
said yes.
and then you cry all the way to the bank, and you're like, all right. No, I've done it, totally. Yeah. My philosophy, although I don't always enforce it, is never say no, just say how much. And I had a guy, actually, who I knew I didn't get along with. It was just going to be a nightmare client. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. My weekly rate's $10,000 a week, and your project's going to take 4 consecutive weeks. You send me 40 grand, I'll build your site. And he went, you have any referrals?
Good job.
But had he sent me 40 grand, I would have, 4 straight weeks, 40 G's.
Yep.
I'll make you coffee, man.
The pain in the butt client fee is real.
Oh yeah, actually I developed
if you don't have one, develop one.
So there's 2, going back to pricing, I've got this huge spreadsheet, multiple tabs, and each tab is a phase of the project. So discovery and content and design, all that. And it's got all different phases of that I've worked out. And do I go through and meticulously fill this out and then go, oh, your project is gonna be 173240? No, but by going through that, it helps me not forget things like, oh, I forgot what an extra custom post type and an extra output, and what views is going to come in, and how is this going to affect search results, and whatever else. So that helps keep me accountable to the mistakes I've made in the past, and that spreadsheet is entirely just a list of mistakes on every page. I screwed up there, screwed up there, screwed up. Okay, so I'm not to screw up again.
I never noticed that correlation before. When we forget to add something to a project, that spreadsheet gets a new entry.
Yeah,
we have a similar.
Same thing. Checklists, lists of things I've screwed up in the past. Okay.
Yeah. So I would say with that, if you don't have a spreadsheet of things that you're checking off whenever you're quoting a project, make sure you get one of those.
Do it. Even if it's 6 things.
Yeah.
Even if it's just the headings. Design, development, just do something and then make it bigger and make it better over time. It'll evolve to suit you and how you work.
Do any of you use third-party proposal services, or do you have your own proposals that you just modify from project to project?
Yeah, I just have a Word doc or whatever that I changed, and like I said, like most of mine, the customization to it is in like what is the business goals and how are we going to solve them. That's how I'm changing the proposal and stuff like that. I've never had any pushback from any clients just doing that. So.
And can we talk numbers? What kind of numbers do you guys charge for websites?
It depends.
That's not a number, Jamie.
That's like asking how much does a car cost?
I understand.
No, it's fine.
I understand that.
I'm well trained on answering this question.
Okay.
What do you tell a client when they ask you how much does a website cost?
I have a piece in my proposal written just for this.
Okay.
And it says you can build your own website for free. Asterisk. And it goes, sure, go ahead, go to Wix or Weebly or Squarespace. They're businesses, they make money. It's not really going to be free, but it's you can pay for it with your time and truly, dozens of dollars. And then I actually cite the official source on what healthcare.gov cost to develop. Final cost out the door was somewhere around $1.6 billion. So
That's your range.
that's where I'm starting. Okay, ready? Websites are free. Websites cost government money. Okay. That being said, our wheelhouse is $5,000 to $50,000 projects. That's where we do our best work. I don't roll out of bed for a new build for less than 5. Truth be told, it's closer to 8. And being 2 people, and the fact that I want to protect myself against any one client being too big. In other words, if I let a client be 70% of my revenue, that client fires me, I'm in a world of hurt. I'm never going to make myself vulnerable like that. So a $50,000 project is about all I'm willing to bite off, given the size we are now.
Have you had to refer any of those out that you couldn't stay within, that were bigger in scope than what you could do?
I've got people for that.
All right.
Ron's one of them. And that helps establish a range. And people look at it and go, okay, they either can swim in that range, or they take one look at it and go, we're the Disney Corporation, and you're adorable. We're not hiring you. Okay, that's a good outcome for me. Or the person who comes, and I literally spent an hour on the phone with someone once, only to find out they had a $50 budget.
Oh my God.
And I went, you owe me that for the last hour of my life. That isn't fair. So I've gotten really comfortable very early in the conversation just to have that conversation. Are we playing in the same ballpark?
Well, and that's when our discovery process, when we demonstrate a few sites that we have done, I pick the very nice ones that are more complicated too, and demonstrate some of the niceness of how carefully crafted the responsiveness is, how beautiful the custom photography is, and all this, and explain, okay, a site like this is a $25,000 website. Now yours is probably not as complicated as that, so it'll be less. But I find it helps setting that a high target.
Yep.
So their expectations
Yeah,
are not
so I do similar,
$50.
Right. And I do similar things, and the conversation starts with what ballpark we in. People are still very cagey. I mean, it's old negotiating. Who's going to say the
You could talk
Yeah,
about that,
so
that's how we
we
scope our
build
maintenance.
into our maintenance plans, and I should have mentioned this before, small tasks. So we define those as any task on their website that takes us 30 minutes or less to perform in its entirety. And they can't stack multiple of those to form 2 hours of work if they're paying for a larger plan.
Okay.
So that's, for us, that's like adding and editing a blog post, optimizing the images and hyperlinks on this one page, making another change here, something like that, or making a small CSS format change. And so, at the lower tiers, they're getting 2 of those a month. At the higher tiers, they get unlimited, but they get paid a lot of money for that.
That's a cool way
And
to
they
do it.
almost never use them, is the crazy part.
Can I ask?
Except you have. You've been great about using them.
What are your prices on those, if you don't mind?
They range from 100 to multiple $1,000 a month marketing retainers.
Okay.
We do have our hosting and support package plans, because we won't do support on any host. They have to be on our WP engine.
Okay.
And we have the pricing for that on our website, for the tiers.
Yep.
I should look at that.
Yeah, go ahead.
You should, we charge more than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Like, I just found out Old Town's charging more than double what I am. And I'm like, Miles and I hashed it out last week, and I'm like, you're doing okay.
Wait, we should turn the camera off while we all agree that websites never cost less than $10,000.
Ever.
Exactly.
On price fixing, we're just all agreeing, right? Everyone in the room.
Is the camera running again?
It is.
Okay, good to know.
Good to know.
Well, I think those were the main questions. Oh,
there was
one was, if there's one thing you could go back and tell yourself, or if you have any other tidbit of advice, and then I think, since we're getting sort of close on the time, we could wrap up unless anyone else from the audience has questions.
I'll say this as far as like anything I go back and tell myself, and this is something I did at the very beginning, and I feel like has carried me through, is I read The Wealthy Freelancer whenever I very first started, and they had a little exercise in there where you write out your ideal day and you write out your ideal client, and from day one, like I knew what kind of work I wanted to do. And so I feel like that was very helpful to kind of have a gauge or a kind of a compass of any time of going after a project. Like I'm always kind of thinking like, are these my ideal client? If you don't know who your ideal client is, then obviously it's hard to know if you're meeting that, right? So I would say it's valuable to go through those kind of exercises of figuring out who is your ideal client and what kind of work do you want to do. Because I assume most people in here are kind of doing their own thing, maybe 1 or 2 people shops. So know what your ideal client is.
Yeah, absolutely. And building on that, that's actually the much better explanation of my only work for good money. I got up on the soapbox at WordCamp last year, just all day long. Only work for good money, because I've worked for a lot of bad money in my life, which is, it's Wednesday, and I need $2,000 by Friday to make payroll. Anybody want to give me $2,000 to do anything? Is a really terrible way to get business. And what I was never factoring in, and it's hard to ever really granularly substantiate, but it's very real, is the opportunity cost of doing bad work. And whether that's just work you don't like doing because it's emotionally taxing, or you're not good at it and you have to just, it's beating your head against the wall because you're learning one line of code at a time instead of fluently writing what you know works. Or working with a client who's just going to hold you over the coals or argue with you about every 1/10 of an hour line item on the invoice. Like, when I had to buy ramen at the end of the week, I was willing to work for money, and that was my standards. And if I had been a little more clear about the kind of work I wanted to do and who I wanted to do it for and what I should get paid for that, I would have suffered less over the last 10 years.
Great, by the way. Yeah, and I think one thing that I wish we had the, I guess, perspective to do early on when it was just Amber and I was still working in restaurants, is to sit down and sort of work backwards. So what is the standard living that we want? How much does that cost realistically? How many hours a week do we want to work, both of us? And then do some simple elementary school math to determine how much we need to charge per hour. And then looking at the bigger picture of, is that a realistic hourly rate? And guess what, it is. And we're all commiserating before this about how we have way too much work to do. So we know the work we know the work is out there.
Charge more.
And so you can actually charge more than what you think you need to make, probably.
Do you think that goes along with your experience level though? So for people just starting out, is that realistic? Because they need to, build up their
Yeah, you need
experience.
to have a certain level of perspective of understanding clients and budgets and all of that. But I think some of it, and maybe this is just the business mind because I do have a business degree and I've used it over years, is if you look at a client and you really look at them, you can understand on some rudimentary level what their budget is. If they're selling 500,000 widgets a month at $4 a pop, you know that they have a very large budget. At least a couple percentage points of that is going to be in the many tens of thousands of dollars for annual marketing spend. If you're looking at a client who's making baby gates in their house and selling them for $200 a pop, and they might sell a few a month, very different picture. And so I think it's being able to look critically at your clients' businesses, with or without them knowing that. They don't necessarily have to know, but the information is usually public and you can usually figure it out just through some clever conversation and questions. How's your business going? What's your volume at right now? Where would you like it to be? How can we get there? Those types of questions can also give you insights into, from a value-based perspective. We were talking about value-based pricing, what you should be charging them. Just for instance, I have a $75,000 annual proposal for our largest client on the table right now, and one of the items in my back pocket that I can bring up at any time if they ask why we're adding 30 to 40% to their annual bill for marketing spend is the first 3/4 of the first thing you sell at each of the locations you sell at pays for this. So they sell many, many tens of thousands of products across 30,000 locations in the United States. So the first 3/4 of one of those products at each one of those locations each month pays for our services. And being able to create that value proposition and helping them to understand in their own terms the value you're bringing to the table is critical.
And that's what I was going to jump on. Yes, I think if you are a newbie or you're just, I never want to stoke anyone's imposter syndrome. If you think you're not up to snuff to be billing out at 125, 150 an hour, take a step back and look at the value you're providing. Because the fact of the matter is, things that I think are second nature and obvious and I just breathe on a daily basis, I didn't know 2 years ago, and my clients sure as hell don't know. So how hard you work, how many hours you work, how skilled you are, is all irrelevant if you can package it up in the value you're creating for the client. Now that's a hard one to package up every time. People just want to know your rate, they want to pay you your hourly, and they want to get it. It's a hard paradigm to break for them, but if you can do it, That's really the justification. I mean, if you're just a noob and you're Googling like every CSS declaration, no. And you're billing for all that time? No. You cannot be putting 150 an hour on your invoice. That ain't gonna work. And they're gonna figure that pretty quick and fire you.
Yeah,
So,
I work for one client.
right. I'm really curious what your takeaway is on this one.
On which piece?
What do we set up?
What
What
you
would
wish
you
you
have told younger you?
Oh. Well, the one I was prepared for ahead of time, that I had given a little thought to, is just that to raise rates sooner than I think I need to. Have the confidence to do that.
Yeah.
That'd be that.
We found a lot of different ways to raise our prices. Our hourly stayed stable for 8 years until this January. We bumped it from 125 to 150, and nobody batted an eyelash. I did grandfather most people in. If anyone was on a retainer, they stay. Anyone new or just going ad hoc gets the new rate, and nobody batted an eye. And every time we've raised prices, whether it was through the hourly rate or simply by adding more hours and being more honest about how many hours we were working and the fact that we weren't just knucklehead beating our heads against the wall, we're actually good at this now. Every time we've raised rates, we've gotten more work, we've put out better work, and our lives get better every time. So don't fear it, go make it. If you're doing really good work, there are people with deep pockets who want that work. And if your clients are harassing you over every last little $5, you can replace them a hell of a lot faster than they can replace you.
Yeah. And I'll throw onto that, kind of piggybacking a little bit, is like, my goal has never been how much revenue can I bring in a year. I know you talked about like how you guys are like going backwards and stuff like that. Like, I'll be honest, I never did that. I was always just like, oh, I wonder how much I'll make this month. But the big motivator for me was always working on projects that I really really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, and it's happened, so it's not just a feeling, it's data, is that everything's just kind of taking care of itself from there. I feel like if you do a really good job, do really good work, that's what's most important, and then everything else will kind of fall into place.
Yes,
So.
if your hourly is where it needs to be, that's
Sure.
it. And I do think picking work that you enjoy working on is huge, huge. I've suffered through too many projects.
I was also gonna say, and don't try and be everything to everybody, because some people
Can't
might
be.
think because
Yeah.
you're the internet guru person, you can fix their outlet problem.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Done that one a long time ago.
I look at them, I'm like,
No, we
that's-
don't
that's
work on
you?
computers.
Yeah.
So everything.
Yeah.
And they got Macs, I'm like, oh yeah, that tiny hand, like, good luck with that, I'm over here at the PC, big font, you know.
I guess the last piece of the pricing that I just didn't mention is that when I go through that massive spreadsheet with all the tabs and all the everything, when that spits out a final number, then a 20% contingency gets put on it.
Absolutely.
Now, that
that's
doesn't
really-
always go out the door that way,
Right.
but it knows where I think my hard, honest estimate is. Honest with myself, like, if everything went right, how often does that happen? And then the contingency, and then I've literally, with some strategic partners, put it out to them and said, listen, this or this. This means I'm watching scope like a hawk.
Exactly.
And if you come after anything extra, it's gonna be extra. And this says
And
we
it's
get to
such
give our mutual client the delightful experience that they want. And when they come to us and say, hey, could we also just add this? I go, yeah, no problem.
We do the same thing. It's about 20% contingency, and we had one client recently that really pressured for a discount. And I said, well, we could take out the contingency, and then everything is scope plus. And that's how it went down, and there's a whole lot of scope plus.
Mhm.
They were okay, but it was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, and if you ask me right now if I had that to do over again, would I do the same thing with that client? I really don't know what my answer would be, because it is a good client.
Only give up half the
but-
contingency.
But I don't, yeah, exactly. But boy, it just turned into such a headache for us, because now I have to track every little thing we did past what we.
And if you think about that in a client experience standpoint, because
Exactly, it's
I'm
not
always
fun for.
looking for what can we do for the best of our clients
Exactly.
in value and experience. And by adding 20% contingency, there's the possibility that Murphy's Law takes a day off and we just get to Scrooge McDuck in the extra money. Well, that's nice. And if that fit their value, they don't care either because they don't know. And we delivered what they thought was a fair price and everyone's happy. But what it gives you the margin to do is if they say,
All
can
those little
we,
requests.
yeah,
you say,
can we also
exactly.
do this?
It's so nice to
Or
say,
if-
yes, we can.
Or if you just want to spend a little more time because you're on a little like nerd rant and going, I can make this cooler and better. It's not really in the scope, but it's better. You know, it gives you, and that all goes back to a talk I heard Chris Lemma give, which I don't think was recorded because it was at Pressnomics. But the whole thing was create margin. Margin gives you margin of time, margin in money, margin in emotional bandwidth. Margin is what lets you do more, say yes to things, and be happy. Because if you're always running 110%, or 100% for those of you who follow the rules of mathematics, life is miserable, and you can't say yes to things. And that's a crummy experience for both you and your client.
One thing I wanted to mention, Ron, when you said that, it made me think that it's been really helpful as well for me in just pricing in general, is if anytime I present a proposal to a client or a potential client and they come back with a counter offer, I never say yes without taking something away from the contract.
Correct.
Never. If they want to take something away, like if they're like, can we do it for $500 less? I had a client who just did this. I put out a proposal. They said, hey, can we do it for $500 less? I said, yes, but our timeline is going to increase. You know, so there was, you know, it's not just always monetary, but there's always a trade-off. It's never yes, because immediately they know, oh, well, he just picked a number out of there.
I wonder how much more fat I could trim off that project.
Yeah. So I never just give them a discount without something in return. And that's been huge, I think, for me. So, what I thought of that.
That's good.
Are there any other questions?
This is very concrete, and the basic thing I'm wondering is, what are you paid when by your clients, and actually what medium do you have them pay in? Do you send invoices and they send you checks, or do you worry about payment one?
So mine's really easy. I use FreshBooks for everything. There's no exceptions. I require 50% up front. They pay me the 50% before we schedule a kickoff meeting. So until they get to 50%, we don't do anything. And they can pay either by mailing me a check or through business PayPal.
No, you changed that, didn't you, Jeremy? Because you used to do 40% up front, I
No,
thought.
it's always been 50.
Oh.
So ours is really similar. I mean, in our case, everything runs through QuickBooks, but it's almost always 50% up front. The only occasions where I change that is in the case of large projects for us. In other words, you have to be over 20 grand, because sometimes, I understand cash flow. A project that big's have a longer timeline, and writing a 5-figure check hurts a lot more than a 4-figure check. So we actually had a client just do that over just in the last couple months, where I did, I think, 30% up front, 40% in the middle, and 30% on completion. In other words, I'll break it into smaller chunks, but they're so big in dollar signs that I'm never worried about, you know, it's like earnest money. I wanna make sure you're putting your money where your mouth is. So it's either 50% or a lot of thousands of dollars up front. And we'll take checks, and we take credit card through the website through Stripe now. And when someone runs like a 7 grand payment through there, I just like cringe. I'm like, there went $260 in processing.
I don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, so we'll often with larger invoices like that, we'll sneak on a little thing. It's like, don't rush, mail us a check. It's cool. We'll even say we'd rather not pay the processing. However, we accept credit cards without penalty, and I'm not going to pass judgment on you if you got to put this on a credit card instead of because you don't have it in the bank. I want your money, so I'll pay the processing. We gently encourage towards checks, but in the end, I don't care.
But I'll say this, like FreshBooks has a PayPal thing where they can pay even if they don't have with a PayPal account, and it's only 50 cent transaction fee. So they could pay us $300, or they could spend us $3,000. It's still only 50 cent.
Nice. Can you send me a
and I
link to
have.
that?
Well, it's just through FreshBooks. They have like an agreement with PayPal. And so like,
Can you go over
and
that?
I would say at this point, 90% of the invoices that are paid are through PayPal right now.
Wow.
And then I just transfer it into the bank.
So we use Xero. We take credit cards, we take checks, and we also, for a very, very select group, i.e. the clients that pay us lots of money every year and we trust them, we'll do a bank transfer as well. So I do have a wire transfer instruction document that I send in a protected version to someone if they want to do bank transfer. So those are the 3 that we do.
And we use Harvest, and we take checks or credit cards or bank transfers if the client requests it, which is rare. We only like 2 people that do that.
Yeah.
And then for us, we actually spread it out a little more. Depends on the size of the project, really, is what it comes down to for us. But the typical project's a third up front, third in the middle, and a third on delivery. But longer projects will be in quarters. You know, like the one that was 9 months long, that was quarters. Which I like, because, you know, on that kind of a deal, over 9 months, we've got 3/4 of the money, you know, 3/4 of the way in, we don't have to wait till that final delivery. And so often that final delivery is contingent on the client getting their stuff done, so
Yep.
that's why I like front loading a little bit, but we just do even payments at whatever interval makes sense for that project.
50% and 50/50 terms for us.
Although we have discussed having it be tied to dates
Mhm.
instead of milestones of projects.
Technically, in our statement of work, it is tied to dates. We've just never enforced it because we don't want to, because I have a feeling that that would really harm a client relationship if we had to pull
You're
For
like,
example-
full contract.
Yeah, you're
For
way
example,
behind on
this-
schedule,
yeah,
but you
right.
still owe us the final amount right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That one that went into chunks, I was aiming really hard to get design in front of them before that 40% invoice went out, because it's like, we're asking for a lot more money, and we've kind of been like playing around in philosophical land, which is important, but I understand the lack of tangible deliverable, and for this particular client, the graphic design was one of their major complaints off their last 2 developers, so I was like, this has to be in front of them.
Yeah.
So had, we did hit it, we got ahead of their date and everything went smooth, but had I blown that date, I would have blown that date, and only sent the invoice after we got,
Yep.
really it was my own concern, if this deal was gonna unravel because they hated my design style, or whatever it was, I wanted it to unravel before I was sitting on that much more of their money.
Sure, sure. And that's one other thing for final terms. I don't know how it is for the other businesses here, but we're very firm about final payment before receipt of final deliverables, always.
Yep.
I've heard too many horror stories about clients taking the deliverables and then walking, and then you have to haul them into court, or something else happens. And then I know there's a horror story from a business owner here in town in our space that their client hired another developer to pull the website files from under their nose, and then suddenly this website that they thought was still in staging, they found it launched. Without the final invoice having been paid. And so that's the kind of stuff that we avoid and we
That's going
watch
to court.
closely. Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yeah, I'm really tight-handed with access during development. They don't get access to like anything until I hand it all over.
Yeah.
So you just put the development website on your own server, or how do you control that?
Yeah, it's an RWP Engine account, and they don't have FTP access, they don't have WordPress access. They can click around and do what they need to do. Occasionally, we'll briefly give them WordPress access, but the last thing we want is them mucking around while we're developing, and then it becomes, did we break this or did they break? No, I'm not doing that. No, that's on my list of mistakes.
Yeah, we had
That's
that
another big
happen with
mistake
the-
where, and can I tell the story, or
Yeah,
do
go
you
for
want
it.
to?
Sure, I was supposed to be on the panel, I'm just gonna.
So we had a client where the project was running way beyond scope, and this person brought on an employee in their business, and she was tasked with helping get content on the website. And so foolishly, we said, yeah, sure, why don't you go in and you can start adding content, we'll do your first training session early, so 45 minutes in WordPress. And then the content that this person developed and put in was atrocious. And suddenly the client hates their design, and they hate everything about their website, and they want it rebuilt. And this client now hates our guts. So we completely failed in that relationship, and that client, I'm waiting for the bad review to go live on Google, we'll just put it that way. So, that's the type of thing where restricting access is key. And you're gonna have a lot less of a headache if you just get out ahead of that and say you're not gonna get access until it's developed and this is how we do things, versus bending on it.
You know, we've started using Gather Content just recently for the content process. So it's a third-party service, you have to pay monthly for it, but you can define the sitemap and all the content pieces that are required, including things like PDFs and things that are separate from a page. And then you can actually see what percentage is delivered. So it makes it possible for us to see is 50% delivered by this date. But that way they're entering content there and not directly on the website. And the beautiful thing is it connects with many content management systems, including WordPress, so you can then push everything from there.
What was that again?
Gather Content.
What does it
Gather
cost?
content.
It's around $70 or $80 a month, I think, for the plan we're on. There
For
is
how many clients?
That's for 500 unlimited, but it's 500 pieces of content,
Okay.
which is a fairly large
Yeah.
number. That's a lot of websites.
Wow.
So that would
And
probably just
including
work
maps
for
to-
default text editor content.
No,
Does
maps
it
to
depend-
custom post types.
custom- Or like
And
custom
advanced
fields?
custom fields, maps to all that.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna check that out.
All right.
New tool.
Gather content,
New
everyone
tools.
go look.
Yes.
And a new $80 a month bill, because I always think
Exactly. But think of all the headaches that
Or
it
the time
avoids.
saved.
Yes. You avoid that.
Well,
one
yeah, it
client.
would have been
Yeah.
worth it,
Yeah.
just in that one
Client.
instance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So if we're wrapping up, I'm going to take the opportunity to shamelessly plug WordPress.
WordCamp.
Anyone heard of WordPress?
What is it?
WordCamp. WordCamp Denver is coming up 1 month from tomorrow. No, we're not having it on Wednesday. That works out to a Saturday next month. It is Saturday and Sunday, August 26th and 27th. And it's spectacular. So
And he's the lead organizer this year too,
Yes.
so.
Congratulations.
my name is on as official lead organizer, which means
But we all know that you're not doing it.
we all know that Leah's doing all the real work. Truth be told, we have a phenomenal organizing committee, and I would like to actually thank both Jeremy and Amber for gracefully bowing out of it because they both had kids recently. And
I made him do it instead.
and very smartly recognized that they couldn't overextend themselves, and that was awesome. I would much rather you say no than say yes and not be able to deliver. Remember that when writing proposals. Better to say no than to say yes and not be able to deliver. See how I brought that home? But no, we got 10 people working on it. It's going to be really killer. We've got excellent speakers coming in, hands-on workshops on Sunday, really good catering, better food than we've had in years past. We
And
changed.
cool parties.
Really, he's our party wrangler, and this dude knows how to throw down. And we moved the venue. We're at DU this year, so
And
just
if you
better
haven't been to
spaces. and-
WordCamp, it's very affordable.
Oh, yeah.
It's $45.
It's $20 a day.
$40.
Yeah, so it's $20 for Saturday, $20 for Sunday.
And if you can't make both days, we are selling them separately.
Exactly.
Wow.
There was some very cool swag in the works, giveaways.
You're doing workshops too, right?
Yeah.
That's new.
Which actually, I think you're going to be running one of them. We haven't
So
told you.
I will add the information to our Meetup page so everybody can see it and find the link easily to RSVP.
Yeah.
But, so we're gonna wrap up, but feel free to stay and chat or ask anyone questions one-on-one if you want.
Yeah, we'll hang out with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody, applause.